lists here for Matti Kuisma. It is the Jeskai Mutate list that you either love or hate, but it's beautiful.
I love it personally. We've just seen what Matti can do with this deck. We saw him playing against Luis Emil Del Toro on camera last round, and I think a common trend that we're seeing from Jeskai Mutate players, both in this Rivals Gauntlet and in the MPL Gauntlet, is there's a lot of proficiency with this deck required to play at an optimal level. I know we had Eduardo asking some of the players, do you regret your choice to bring this deck? Are you happy with it? And one of the most common answers was, I just know this deck inside and out. I love it, so I brought a deck I'm comfortable with, knowing I could do well with it. And for Matti, his favorite deck, he's doing incredibly with this deck, just ready to prey on some of these creature matchups.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it feels like a tough deck to play over 12 rounds. It must be a little bit mentally exhausting sometimes if you have to go through that combo.
Yeah, you just really don't have room for missteps. We saw Ray Sato yesterday, one misclick of not casting a spell in his graveyard, and it almost cost him an entire match at a crucial point in the tournament. So really, you have to make sure that as these rounds go on, these longer tournaments, you're staying sharp, you're staying on top of things, and making sure you understand every move matters with a deck like this.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the opponent here of Matti Kuisma. It is Jan Moritz Merkel running Izzet Control, a deck that we kind of saw break out at the Challenger Gauntlet. Talk to me about this build specifically.
Yeah, this isn't your grandpa's Izzet Control, as it were. They took Noriyuki Mori's Izzet Control deck, and this team decided to make it bigger. They added some cards. They added Yuri into the sideboard, so now this is an 80-card deck, but the core concept is the same. Removal spells, control, counter spells, as well as draw and those big finishers, Cure, Best the Sea God, and Shark Typhoon. Now, this deck has looked really impressive in the Challenger Gauntlet. I know we saw it kind of fall by the wayside in the MPL Gauntlet, but one of the things that I know Luis Scott Vargas tweeted was, I'm not picking up that many wins, but I am beating Jeskai Mutate. And for Jan Moritz Merkel, well, that's the matchup he's facing. His teammate Kai Buddha has already beat Matti twice in this tournament on the same deck. So even though Jan has lost to Matti once, I think he's still feeling pretty good about his chances.
All right, we'll see what will happen here in this revenge match here, in a way. Matti Kuisma versus Jan Moritz Merkel. Jeskai Mutate versus Izzet Control. Who can take it home? We'll find out as we head on down to the feature match area.
Thank you, Maria. That's right. It is ready. It is time for Rivals round number 11. And welcome back to coverage here of the Rivals Gauntlet. Marshall Sutcliffe with Cedric Phillips, and we've got Matti Kuisma facing down Jan Moritz Merkel. Now, they're not on the same record, 8-2 for Matti versus 7-3 for Jan Moritz. In the hands of Matti Kuisma is Jeskai Mutate, the deck that we've been talking about all day yesterday. Jan Moritz, he's brought Izzet Control. This is one of the least popular choices for the field. It did not do well for the players who chose it in the MPL yesterday. But today, here in Rivals, it's doing pretty good. Jan Moritz is sitting at 7-3, and Kai Buddha is already through to the top 8, playing the same list here, said.
Yeah, Kai has, of course, gone on a dominant run. We're going to see him later today. For right now, we're seeing Jan take a mulligan with this Izzet Control deck. Cinderclasm, a card that has been an all-star for many over the course of this weekend, but this is not a matchup for either player. So you saw Jan with his mulligan put that card to the bottom right away. Says, I don't need that for this particular matchup. Better against those green decks that have Edgewall Innkeeper, which have honestly not performed particularly well this weekend at all.
That's right. Kind of interesting, too, to take a look at Matti Kuisma and how he's played against the deck. He's actually had a chance to play against Jan Moritz Merkel already, and he won. He beat Jan earlier in the tournament, so you'd think that would make you feel pretty good about it. But he also had the misfortune of facing down Kai Buddha twice so far in the tournament, again playing the same deck as Jan, and he lost both of those. So, yeah, we'll continue the experiment, let's say. Wow, Jwari Disruption hitting Expressive Iteration. That's got to feel good for Jan.
Yeah, that feels good for me.
You like that one, Seth? Yeah. And now he gets to resolve his own.
Well, see, this is what happens. See, when you force spike one of them, you're probably looking for your third land, and doesn't
That's
happen
right.
Here for Jan.
He's got it down in his hand, but doesn't hit it off of the 3. Pretty brutal there for Jan. It is funny because it feels like you got robbed if you play Expressive Iteration and just get to take a really good card from the top 3 and put it in your hand, which really isn't that bad. All told, it replaces itself and you get card selection, but we're used to it doing so much more. Boy, what's for lunch there, Jan? Look at that. He's got his plate of food going here too. He's just kind of in the zone.
He's getting his nibble on right now. I like it. It's just like any other. This is just like any other match of Magic, right? You're just, I'm just kind of doing my thing, eating some food, frostbiting away a Lord Drakis, yada yada yada.
Just fire up a draft on a Sunday and
might as well
have some spaghetti with. Yeah, why not? Let's do it. Wow. All right, so Lord Drakis down. Now we're going to see a second Expressive Iteration here for Matti, who also doesn't see a land out of the 3, and in fact, 3 combo pieces appear here: Goldspan Dragon, Prismari Command, and Vadrok. And I think without a land, let's see, will Matti be able to cast any of these? No, right?
I mean, not particularly. So now it's just about like what card does he want to add to his hand, and this is actually a pretty difficult decision because we all know about the power level of Goldspan Dragon in a deck like this, but you are playing against a control deck that really shouldn't have that much difficulty with the dragon, but it is a key cog in what you're doing. So it's a pretty difficult decision right now. It looks like he's already chosen the dragon to the hand, deciding which one he wants to put under the library now, and then which one he'll put over to the side. Looks like Radrock's going to be moving to the library, and that means that Prismari Command's going to be exiled.
Okay, yeah, and again, without a land drop, the Prismari Command is going to stay that way. Kind of clunky here for both players, but here's Omen of the Sea now. For Jan. Wow, where are these lands?
Well, that is the nice thing about a card like Expressive Iteration and Omen of the Sea. They'll help you get there. So, well, maybe.
Draw 7. Oh, okay, that is a land.
Technically counts.
Spikefield Hazard is a land. Thankfully, it's going to go onto the battlefield. Quick dinner update. Jan's almost finished. He's very satisfied with his dinner. Shark Typhoon's going to get cycled on end step here as Matti Kuisma once again is facing down some pretty serious mana issues. These modal double face lands coming in very handy here for Jan Moritz. He got to hit a land drop last turn off of it, and we'll see if he'd like to use Jwari Disruption as a land as well. I would assume so with double Kioribessa Sea God in hand.
Yeah, looking to try to get closer to that 7 mana enchantment that's so incredibly powerful. Though you do see the negate that Kuisma does have, also unsubstantiated, so it's not going to have a ton of difficulty in delaying the powerful Kioribessa Sea God.
Interesting choice here against an opponent who's struggling on mana. Jwari Disruption does play a bigger part. It could very well be a hard counter for something like a Goldspan Dragon if an untapped land were to come off. But Jan ultimately making the judgment call and deciding, no, I really do need my own lands here. I can't afford to try to get extra value here. But there's a land here for Kuisma. He's not going to test his luck here and actually cast that Showdown of the Skulls. He's just going to pass a turn back. And once again, the players, kind of a funny way that this game's played out. This is going to be Prismari Command, target myself with both modes. Ooh, there's some lands. Tap lands for days here for Jan Moritz Merkel.
Yeah, I think one of these Kioribessa Sea God is a pretty easy discard. Field of Ruin not going to do a ton in this matchup either, so that's going to go. Hall of Storm Giants, already one on the battlefield here for Jan. Maybe the second one ends up mattering at some stage of the game. The biggest thing that Jan's missing right now is the inability to really handle a Goldspan Dragon, in my estimation. And it's kind of something you mentioned with the Jwari Disruption last turn of does he want to keep that, does he not? Hitting land drops is, of course, an incredibly important thing to be doing in matchups like this, and he elected to just play it as a land instead of holding it with the hope of maybe things lining up to counter a Goldspan Dragon. But as you can see with Jan's hand, it's a fine hand, but it's not the best hand possible right now with no real reactive permission. And now there's a real onus on probably resolving this Kioribessa Sea God. But Marshall, we already see Kuisma's hand. That's going to be really hard to do.
It is. It's interesting how this has played out. Jan Moritz has been able to pull ahead significantly as far as mana production goes. He's got a treasure and 2 lands up on his opponent right now. And look at this. Matti Kuisma says, I just got to go for it. And he's going to put Showdown of the Scalds down, and it resolves. That'll hit a land drop for you.
Yeah, and most importantly, it's going to hit a blue land drop to be able to keep up Unsubstantiate and or Negate right now, which is very important. So for us here in the booth, it's pretty easy to say, yeah, you just go for the Goldspan Dragon. It attacks. It gets a treasure. That treasure can sacrifice for 2 mana. Then you can negate or unsubstantiate something. But that's really easy to say when you're working with perfect information. The reality is that's a pretty difficult decision for Kuisma to make when you've got a player who's cast multiple copies of Expressive Iteration, Prismari Command, draw 2, discard 2, Omen of the Sea. You know, like, you have to imagine that he's probably got some way to deal with Goldspan Dragon. But we all know here, watching the match, that that's not really the case right now.
Wow, and I want to go back to what you said before about the untapped blue source there being just critical here for Kuisma. He hits it, and that's going to allow him to keep those shields up. Without it, even if it was just like, say, that Raugrin Triome is his only blue and he had to play it like that, I mean, we would be seeing, you know, Kiorabes the Sea God hit the battlefield here, maybe even something to do with Yorion. I mean, it could get ugly very quickly. As it stands, though, the shields get to stay up here for Matti Kuisma.
And this is a nice thing here for Jan if you're rooting for him and Izzet Control, because he has now found a counterspell for a Goldspan Dragon in Disdainful Stroke. So he's actually found maybe the counterspell that Kuisma was scared of that didn't exist yet. He actually does have it now. And because of this Goldspan Dragon that's over in exile, you kind of got to go for this. So we'll see this kind of exchange between these two players, Dragon, Stroke, and then potentially a negate here from Kuisma.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this plays out, because as the hands have developed, Matti has really just brute force, right? Goldspan Dragon here from the exile zone, but then another pair of Goldspans in hand, and can just sort of force through a Goldspan Dragon, no problem. In fact, can get the job done right now. And here comes Goldspan Dragon. That is a big step backwards here from Jan Moritz Merkel's perspective, as he's going to start getting slammed on here, and we could just see Dragon, Dragon, Dragon. It could get ugly quite quickly.
Yeah, we might not see any mutations. We might not see a ton of the nonsense that this deck can really put together and has been putting together all weekend long. We might just see double or triple Dragon, as you did mention. But for now, I think the Kraken are calling.
Yeah, this is really interesting, because now it's going to be this huge fight. Both players are out of counterspells, and it's just going to be an outright slugfest down the stretch here. There's the Unsubstantiate to set back this Kiorabes the Sea God. But beyond that, it'll be Kiorabes the Sea God and another one, and then also a Yorion. The real question is, can Jan survive long enough to deploy that game plan? Ooh, another Unsubstantiate there for Matti Kuisma is acting as a time walk, if you will. The ability to set the opponent back an entire turn effectively, given that the cards in Jan Moritz Merkel's hand are 7, 7, and 5.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic draw. Now, if you're Jan, you know, these Kiorabes the Sea God are now pretty bad. So now it's about resolving Yorion, which, okay, sure. But that can't handle one of these Goldspan Dragons. And now you're in some serious, serious trouble. Your hand hasn't come together all that well. You know, you've got your awesome enchantments and sagas, but it's not the right time for them. And I'm not really sure what Merkel's best draw step is here to get himself out of this situation. He is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's funny because he can cast Yorion, have it unsubstantiated, and then just recast it again. But Matti has so many options on just waiting till end step, unsubstantiate it, and then just kill you. He also can win through a Yorion at this point, thanks to the third copy of Goldspan Dragon. So he doesn't actually need to worry about it sticking on the battlefield. And I'm not seeing a lot of ways out here for Jan.
Yeah, I'm also having the same difficulty that you are right now. Another Goldspan Dragon. This looks like post-combat. Okay, Shark Typhoon?
Is that part of the equation? I still feel like the unsubstantiate would prevent that from mattering, because it can take care of one blocker.
I guess I was gonna say maybe Shark Typhoon can cycle into something, but again, I'm with you. Unsubstantiate's just gonna bounce whatever. It's gonna bounce the token, right? So you cycle into something. You have to have. He's got to have two things right now. Yeah,
it's basically in Izzet, he needs a 2-mana answer for a Goldspan Dragon.
Yeah, step one's going to be pretty easy insofar as attacking is concerned, but This is part of the power of this Jeskai Mutate deck, folks, is, yeah, we haven't really seen Lordrakis or Vadrock or, some of the nonsense that we see as far as comboing is concerned. But what we do see is just, look, Goldspan Dragon's a powerful magic card. And sometimes powerful magic cards just get the job done. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now on Kuisma's side. His draw has not come together all that well. He was definitely struggling and fumbling around with way too many copies of Cinderclasm. But it looks like he's going to cross the finish line to victory here this following turn.
Yeah, it's really impressive. Just leaning on the raw power of Goldspan Dragon, and now we can see unsubstantiate even to completely seal the deal, although currently he actually has lethal through the board, except for the Shark token. So there we go. Plenty enough here from Matti Kuisma, as he's going to get the job done, sending Yorion back to hand. I guess Jan is going to just take a quick look, because why not?
Let him know. All right, see, there you go.
And
Cycle. I'm with you in this so far as the small. Okay, I'll just take a little quick look to see what I could have cycled into, but the answer is nothing. And just like that, Jeskai Mutate keeps doing its thing.
Wow, it's incredible. Yeah, and it really does stand out about how its thing can be this kind of busted combo, convoluted, requiring a lot of cards, but we've seen it happen multiple times over the course of the tournament. But sometimes it just does what you described, Cedric, where it just plays some really powerful stuff. It does have to make some concessions to get the combo in there, right? Some less powerful options individually. But as a whole, it certainly makes up for it. And a lot of time you just see, hey, that was 3 Goldspan Dragons. That was the story of that game for Matti Kuisma. Just drew 3 Goldspan Dragons, cast them, attacked with them, and won. And that was it.
Yeah, no real mutations. Nothing that the deck is kind of its namesake for, and some of the cool, crazy plays that we see from the deck, just raw power of Goldspan Dragon. And that's a card that we, of course, are going to see over the course of the rest of today and heading into the next standard format, too, once Innistrad Midnight Hut shows up, too. So if you're a Goldspan Dragon fan, I think there's a lot to be excited about for the next handful of months.
Okay, game number 2 coming in here between Matti Kuisma and Jan Moritz Merkel, as we say in the business. Where are we going here? This looks similar to the first game in the sense that there's going to be a lot of jockeying for position between the players. Although, look at this, a negate on an Omen. They're going to fight early here, it looks like. Ooh, Mystical Dispute off the top for Jan.
All right, technically found a land with a Shatter Skull, Smashing, and then both of those cards are actually pretty interesting. Test of Talents and Expressive Iteration. Which one do you want in your hand? It looks like Iteration is going to go to the grip. Talents will go to the bottom. Smashing will go to the side. That'll be the land for the turn. I imagine it's going to ETB tapped.
Interesting. Yeah, Test of Talents can be so huge in this matchup. If you can nab the Unsubstantiate, for example, you can kind of break up the combo potential and force Matti to win. I don't know if fair is the right word, but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. Ooh, a Mind Flare. Okay. You find a Mind Flayer to the grip. You put the Snow Covered Mountain in exile. Omen of the Sea to the bottom. Potentially haven't played a land yet this turn either. Really depends on how you feel about Mind Flayer in the matchup. It's obviously come in for a reason.
Right. It's always hard to, this is we're getting a chance to talk to the players about what they think is so important. And we've had Eduardo Sajgalik here all weekend, chatting with the players and trying to get information from them, because some sideboard cards come in and are really, really important. Like they're the card you want to draw. They're the one that changes the outcome. And some of them are just upgrades. It's like, well, this is better than the worst card that I have, but it's not, it's not a game changer for me.
Yeah. Yep. You got to, as an example, you got to get those Cinderclasms out of your deck for something. Right. So exactly. some of those cards are going to be quite good. Some of them are just going to be some minor upgrades over Cinderclasm, which is a card that plays essentially no role in this matchup for either player. So I definitely agree with the assessment that you just put down there.
Okay, so let's see what Matti wants to do for the turn. He has Fadrok on the battlefield, has already attacked with it, and he's just going to run Showdown of the Scalds out there. And hey, no time like the present. Jwari Disruption is going to nab the Showdown. That always feels good when you can get such a powerful card for one of your more medium level cards. Now we're going to see Fabled Passage hit the battlefield. And that makes me think that we're going to also see the Omen here. Well, looks like it's going to be Yorion And then pass the turn. No need to fire off the Omen just yet.
Yeah, you can add Big Bird to the hand, still have a counter magic, be it Essence, Scatter, or Stainful Stroke, and also still have the option of Omen of the Sea. Take a couple licks here. Use your life total as a resource. Falling from 17 to 14, not the end of the world, I presume. And so now here's that Omen of the Sea you were mentioning.
Yep. End step here. Once again, another 3 damage comes through. A null, and how important are land drops here? Well, he's got one already, so he's going to put those on the bottom and find another Disdainful Stroke and a land anyway.
All right, do you want to try to run out the 4/5 flyer? It looks like the answer is no for right now.
Yeah, I'm going to use that life total as a resource, down to 14, crashing down to 11 here. Vadrock, well, does get the job done in the air here, down to 11, almost half the life total of Jan Moritz Merkel at the cost of that Vadrock just simply attacking every turn, and Matti Kuisma has nothing to say about it, just says go ahead, and there's an annul off the top.
Yeah, the one thing that's kind of interesting about this game that we're seeing is it looks like Urian's going to be placed in the stack is Kuisma's hand is terrible. I guess really is what I would say. I try to keep things positive, but I also try to keep them honest. His hand's awful.
Really
Spyfield Hazard, bad. Land doesn't need. Lord Drakis, really not going to mutate right now. And an Unsubstantiate is, it might show up right now, but his hand's terrible. Merkel's hand is really, really good. Merkel just needs to deal with the one threat on the battlefield, and this kind of gets pretty easy.
It does look like it, doesn't it? Here's some value coming from Yori and Sky Nomad as well, as Omen of the Sea is going to get blinked and find, there's a Shark Typhoon as well as a land, but that Shark Typhoon's a nice one. That'll go into hand here for Jan as he passes the turn back. Now, finally, with a blocker to keep his life total from plummeting to this Vadrock. He's also got access to a null double Disdainful Stroke, Mystical Dispute, and an Essence Scatter.
Yeah, if Jan can untap through this turn and not be dead, and the battlefield's pretty much even, it just kind of feels like it's just going to be game over. He's got all of these reactive elements, reactive permission to be able to handle anything that Kuisma kind of throws his way. He's just got to get through this turn kind of unscathed.
Yeah, it's funny because it doesn't look like Matti would be able to resolve another spell if Jan gets to untap from here. It's funny, cards like Lord Drakis are kind of the only types of cards that Matti can attempt here, because there's only the one Essence Scatter over there for Jan. Otherwise, Dispute, double Disdainful Stroke, null.
We got a timeout getting used now. Down to one of those. Yeah, if you're Jan, you got to be feeling really good about this. You're just kind of sitting here thinking, all right, well, you got a Goldspan Dragon. I got counterspells for that. Mystical Dispute, I have a counterspell there. Well, this is okay.
Well, that's frisky.
To say the least.
1 damage to the Orion.
Take that.
And then a Lord Drakis. This is a heck of a play here for Matti Kuisma.
Not a bad time for an Essence Scatter,
Yeah.
If I'm Jan right now, I'm like, what the
this
heck?
is one of those situations where Matti may need to take advantage of the temporary gains here from Unsubstantiate to get this Lord Drakis resolved, but it's a little bit awkward for him as he's kind of burning through all the jet fuel here. Nothing really left after this. He does Unsubstantiate, but of course he Unsubstantiate his own Lord Drakis. That way Jan isn't left after this exchange still holding an Essence Scatter.
So now you're going to see the mutate again, right? So there's going to be a couple of triggers that go on.
Things get interesting here. This Vadrock, it's going to provide some value. Looks like Negate is a card that's going to go back to hand, and then Unsubstantiate can be cast for free. And it looks like that's actually going to just bounce the whole pile here for Matti. But this is the situation that he didn't want to find himself in, which is now Jan is stacked up with counter spells here, or at least can interact in some way. Though, interestingly, the Disdainful Strokes not looking great. Those are kind of reserved for Goldspan Dragon.
Yeah, these strokes don't look great. The Null doesn't look great. The Dispute might matter, may not matter. I mean, you do know your opponent's hand.
I think the bigger problem here is just the Shark Typhoon is going to make a massive token here. You know, Jan, I'm sure he considered the option of hard casting with 4 other spells in hand, but it doesn't make sense to do so here because he does have all these reactive cards, and just getting a 6/6 flyer is great. Wow, 3rd Disdainful Stroke. Let's just say there won't be any Goldspan Dragons hitting the battlefield this game, but is that going to be enough? And can he just apply pressure here and just put Matti on a 2-turn clock? It looks like it.
I think that's really kind of the only option that he has right now. At some point, perhaps we'll see the Summon of the Sea get sacrificed for a little scry action. But beyond that, as you mentioned, Goldspan Dragon, the card that Jan got destroyed by last game, that's not going to happen this game.
Not this time.
I don't even think Kuisma really has anything going on of significance in the graveyard. Right?
No, I don't think so either.
Been so bad.
Yeah, there's an unsubstantiate, but I don't think that any of these are really good enough to kind of get the job done here. Mainly because, one thing we have to remember is you do need a Goldspan Dragon on the battlefield to keep looping, as that's your source of mana recursion. You can get good value with the type of situation that Kuisma has here, but it doesn't feel quite like that's going to be enough against Jan, mainly because he can just never get a dragon onto the battlefield.
Yeah.
The unsubstantiate's nice. It can take care of the shark token, and it does.
I'm going to turn Spikefield Hazard to hand because no other option in the graveyard. Okay.
Interesting. No sightings here for Hall of Storm Giants yet either, which would be very relevant for Jan to finish off this game. Ooh, Bone Crusher Giants, very nice here. That's a sneaky way to turn this from a 2-turn clock into a 1-turn clock.
Yeah, so you attack here, put him down to 2, try to go. Well, curious on when we attempt to go for the W, because we could cast Stomp, but your opponent has negate, so you could just hard cast Bone Crusher.
Right.
Put 2 creatures on the battlefield, but we didn't go that route either. So now here's a top deck expressive iteration, which is going to resolve, but it's not particularly good, I don't think.
No, it's not. And the other issue here is as the mana starts to dwindle here for Matti Kuisma, that Mystical Dispute starts to get better and better. And if Jan can just find the window to resolve Stomp, then the game ends on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's going to have to be the combination of a block, first strike damage, and Prismari Command to get the job done here for Kuisma. That's kind of his last effort to get this Yorion off the battlefield.
Well, whatever you got to do. Looks like that's going to be the play here. Vadrock has a lot of text.
Man, look how close Jan is. He drew Spikefield Hazard. He can get Matti Kuisma to 1.
Yeah, he's getting. Well, he should be. He should be
good.
Clear for takeoff now, right? Because we cast Stomp, negate happens, you dispute that, and then you're good to go. We're actually just going to see. Yeah, we're going to see Stomp right now.
Yeah, this goes back to last turn where Matti, kicked things off with expressive iteration there. It just chews up too much of your mana to be able to, have to cast 5-7 mana worth of stuff beforehand. And Jan Moritz Merkel can just sort of lord this Stomp over the game. Now, Matti, of course, unaware of it as well. So extra good here for Jan, who's going to pick up the victory.
I like it. Give him a taste of the hazard on the way out the door. I like it.
I think he hazarded himself.
Yeah, give him a little taste.
He says, "You can't hurt me." And that's game number 2 going to Jan Moritz Merkel as he picks up the victory there. So game number 3 incoming between these two. And yeah, when I zoom out a little bit here, the counterspells got kind of awkward for Jan, but he had enough to finish the job. But boy, Matti's hand just really kind of failed him there. The lack of a dragon really hurt. And he ended up with a really, if you take a snapshot of the type of hand that Matti had, that has to be one of the downsides to playing a deck like this, where you just kind of get a bunch of stuff together that isn't really great.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, these hands that Kuisma has had over these first two games have just been kind of on the bottom of the range, and he's all tied up 1-1. So if you're him and you're trying to keep things positive, you're just kind of going, look, my draws have not been good these first couple of games, and we're all tied up. So the matchup is somewhat difficult, but there's a ceiling on his draws, and he hasn't even gotten close to it yet. So let's see if he comes there this particular game. I was also taking kind of a little bit of a look at the annuls and what the heck were going on there for Jan. And the targets are Showdown of the Skulls and Maze Mind Tome. And those cards are powerful enough that I do think it's worth it to have a couple of annuls in the deck. I was a little taken aback initially, but because those cards are so powerful, it makes some sense to me.
Okay. All right, mana development continues for both of our players here. This is the easy part. One of the key sideboard cards that Eduardo pointed out to us, by the way, are these Maze Mind Tomes.
Yeah,
and you see one in hand here for Jan. That's the type of card that can get you way, way ahead if it can resolve.
All right, this is your classic start in these blue matchups, right? It's just iterations, Omen of the Seas, hit the land drops, all that sort of stuff. It's Kuisma's deck that has to actually do the acting, though,
right?
First, because Jan can just play the setup game the entire time and also never really make a meaningful move on his own main phase because he is playing Shark Typhoon. So he can do everything just reactively as opposed to being proactive on Kuisma's end step and everything. So Matty's at some point he's gonna have to get something rolling, and this is something worth noting here. This Maze Mind Tome.
Yeah, so both players having one, it kind of equals them out, which makes things interesting. First player to get it was Jan Merkel, and now he can start to develop again. Mana is going to be critical here. When you have a Maze Mind Tome out, you're kind of chewing up your mana per turn for the foreseeable future to keep activating it, and you want to make sure that you can really get as many cards out of it as possible. If you're forced to scry, that's usually a sign that things aren't going quite the way that you wanted. Like we see here, you'd much prefer for Matti to be able to just pay the 2 and get the card out of the deal. Well, I guess cards aren't going to be an issue for him, though. Here's Showdown of the Skulls going on the stack here for Matti Kuisma.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be an issue at all there, bud.
And it looks like it's going to resolve, too.
Yeah.
Jan could draw a card with the tome and try to counter it, but he doesn't. It's going to resolve. So what does he see here? Vadrock, a land, a Disdainful Stroke, and something.
Cool shark.
He's going to go max shark here. 3/3 in this case.
Stroke's a pretty good draw.
And where was that last turn?
No kidding.
Matti Kuisma came into this round with an 8-2 record, and if you get that 9th win, that locks you into the top 8. So Matti is actually playing for a guaranteed top 8 seat here. Jan is at 7-3, so not quite in the same position, but realistically speaking, with a win here, would put himself in excellent position for a top 8, if not lock it up mathematically. That's something that the players will have to, of course, consult on their own. Here comes Essence Scatter on Vadrock.
Yeah, this Izzet control deck is very interesting in how its progression through this metagame. It kind of showed up out of nowhere as a rogue deck, and now you've got Kai and Jan and some players playing it this weekend. I know Luis Scott Vargas did as well. He didn't have the most successful of weekends in the MPL Gauntlet, unfortunately, for LSV, but this deck looks like it has a pretty good matchup here. Like, it feels like it has a good matchup. Essence Scatter lines up pretty well. Disdainful Stroke lines up pretty well. You've got plenty of card drawing on Omen of the Sea and Maze Mind Tome and Expressive Iteration be able to find answers to what you're looking for. Ignoring that Goldspan Dragon game that we watched in the first game, I really do like Izzet's setup in this matchup. And there's just their ability to continuously draw cards and interact with the opponent and kill without having to tap out on their own main phase with something like Shark Typhoon. And as you see, both these players have a ton of cards in their hands. I really like how Jan's hand and deck is lining up against what Kuisma's doing here.
Yeah, I'm with you, Cedric. Post-board particularly, it looks like a nightmare here for Matti Kuisma. And we mentioned that he was able to defeat Jan in their one meeting earlier in the tournament, but he was not able to defeat Kaibude, who is running the same list here as Jan.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see why Matti may have gotten away with one defeating Jan earlier, because look at Jan's hand here. My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty strong hand, and this is a game where he's doing pretty well against Goldspan Dragon once again with Essence Scatter and Disdainful Stroke. Haven't even gotten to mention the Prismari command, that he picked up a handful of turns ago. Expressive Iterations, which he hasn't had the opportunity to really cast just yet. I think the balance of power right now is in favor of Jan, but there's quite a few turns left to be played here in this game.
Curious to see if the Prismari command gets fired off on the Maze Mind Tome even at this point. That's the second counter going on it, so you could prevent potentially 2 more cards from going into Matti Kuisma's hand. That has to be worth it here.
Yeah, I like this play a lot of blow that up and get yourself a treasure. Mana is crucial in this matchup. Getting Maze Mind Tome off the battlefield is always very nice, so that exchange is pretty good. Yeah, Kuisma gets to draw a card, picked up a copy of an island, but you got that permanent off the battlefield.
So once again, Kuisma is reduced to just lands, no other relevant permanents of any sort. For Jan Moritz, though, he's slowly building up a nice little value store here. He's got the Maze Mind Tome with 2 counters on it. He's going to use a Disdainful Stroke on a Goldspan Dragon here as well. And this is going to get negated back. And that means that it's going to have to be Essence Scatter here to keep this Goldspan Dragon off the battlefield. And now it's kind of pedal to the metal mode here for Jan. He really needs to find more counters as we see Mystical Dispute here from Kuisma. And that means that he's going to get a Goldspan Dragon on the battlefield right now.
Mm-hmm. So he was able to win that counter war, even though I would say Jan has more counter spells after sideboard. Kuisma was able to win this one, and now Goldspan Dragon's on the battlefield, and just like we saw in that first game, you got to kill this thing and get it off the battlefield because it can win the game all by itself, and now here we go with Lord Rakkus mutating onto it and a showdown the Scald's counter. So things are starting to get a little ugly out here. And I like getting back Negate as protection.
Really great turn here for Matti Kuisma. It wasn't looking great, but the combination of the dragon plus 3 ways to protect it, it looks like it's going to be good enough here to get this dragon on the battlefield and maybe even get some combos going.
Yeah, so now things get extra tough. This Maze Mind Tome, you're going to actually have to start just scrying with it. So Jan's activation there was just activate the scry, put a pathway onto the bottom. You know that your opponent has Negate in hand. Now you need something that's clean answer to this. Hopefully Iteration is able to find him something, assuming it resolves, which it does, and there's no answers there right now.
How is he supposed to get through the Negate in hand here for Kuisma as well? Boy, the game plan for Jan is very much don't let the dragon hit the battlefield, right? Like this combination of colors, blue and red, is not really adept at getting rid of the dragon once it's there. If you're playing black mana, you can get rid of it, right? Yep. But it's tougher here in this. I mean, there are cards, right? But there's not that many of them.
I mean, I would argue the best find, even though it's not a permanent solution, would be a card like Mind Flayer, which is why that's come in. But
definitely Mind Flayer.
It's not going to solve the problem right now. Yeah.
No, it's not. I mean, normally you'd have access to red cap melee, which could help, but given the +1/+1 counter that the Goldspan Dragon picked up, that's less effective as well.
And now Kuisma with Negate back up, he might think that his second Goldspan Dragon is clear for takeoff now too. And if that's the case, this thing is going to really get out of control here in just a moment.
Yeah, and he might be very correct about that. Phoenix of Ash can come down and do something, but it's really not that effective against Goldspan, especially when Vadrock enters the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, Matti Kuisma has to be thrilled that this is the way the turn went. Really nothing of consequence there from...
Wow, look at us getting in.
Oh,
Yeah.
going upstairs with the Phoenix. That might be the only way. And Cedric, that might be a bit of desperation showing here from Jan Moritz Merkel. I really thought he was in a good position before, and now it looks like it's fallen apart for him. He's going to play Disdainful Stroke on Goldspan Dragon, but Kuisma has the ability to protect that as well.
Yeah, and he already knows.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to check the mana here really quickly, because does it make sense to negate, or does it make sense to unsubstantiate and replay your dragon so that you can keep the negate in your hand? It looks like it's going to be negate, unsubstantiate still at the ready. So this Goldspan resolves. I guess you can play a Phoenix of Ash now too. Yeah. Yeah, this is a plus 5, 9, 10, 11.
This is your dead next turn.
Yep. Yeah, you can
and there's no sweepers for Jan Merkel. I mean, what? Like, how does he come back from this nonsense?
Just welcome to Jeskai Goldspan Dragon, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say welcome to the top 8 Matti Kuisma.
Yeah. And, Shark Typhoon, in a lot of circumstances, would be a great answer, but the draw step last turn for Kuisma was a copy of Unsubstantiate, which can just bounce the Typhoon token that would love to block. So, my, oh my, oh my. Goldspan Dragon really flexing its muscles in this matchup.
Seriously, it's won both the first and likely to win this third game here as well, just based on raw power. I mean, nothing fancy here. There was a little tiny bit of mutating, but that isn't even what the name of the game was. It was flying, haste.
Yeah.
Power.
Yeah. A little bit of mana, and that's really about it, right?
Wow.
Win the counter war.
Super impressive performance here from Matti Kuisma, and really showing us the resiliency that this list has, even through a stacked hand here from Jan Merkel, who was looking to be pretty in good shape. Remember, he was the first one to get that Maze Mind tome down, and it feels like it just doesn't matter.
Marshall.
What do we have here?
A little hard casty.
Okay, so Frostbite to kill your Phoenix, block, or in worst case, take 4 from the dragon, chump block the other one.
Now, Unsub is going to make this. So I like this play from Jan because it's got like this super high upside. So I really, really, really like this play. And I am okay. So that's going to resolve. Okay, sure. So let's see. I mean, the game. The game. I'm almost positive is still over unless Kuisma makes some sort of misstep, right? Because Fire Prophecy can just kill a Phoenix of Ash, attack with everything. You frostbite the Phoenix of Ash, you create a shark. I bounce the shark with the Unsubstantiate. You don't get the opportunity to block. So like I still think this is over either way.
Yes.
But I really do like the kind of go for it attempt here with Shark Typhoon because of what Jan's hand looks like of, okay, like if you don't have the goods in your hand, you're just relying on these Goldspan Dragons across the finish line, we're good. I can stabilize that way. It's just not going to come to fruition. So here's the Prophecy on the Phoenix of Ash. This is the best place to start the turn.
Because this kind of ends it. Again, the Unsubstantiated is unknown to Jan. Because theoretically, he could still survive this turn with just the Frostbite. But as we know, that is not how this is going to play out.
Not even a little.
Not even a little. Wow. Man, resolved hard cast Shark Typhoon, not going to be enough here. It's funny because if Jan had just a treasure or another mana, a second copy of Frostbite might have been enough to be able to make it through the turn and see what you can do off of another Maze Mind Tome. Hey, there is a Maze Mind Tome on 3 here, right? Is that enough? If you go to 9, you're still just dead, right?
I guess this token. So this isn't going to work
I just had forgotten about the 4, but it still, I think, is just plenty enough for lethal because he's going to be taking 11 minimum.
Yeah, so the problem here with all of this
is
that,
exactly lethal.
Yeah, the problem here with all of this is like Kuisma's hand is actually just, it's so good because it can take care of the Shark Typhoon tokens, right? Because you could go to 9, like this Frostbite gets countered, right? But you go, okay, I'll make a token, I'll block your 5/5 Goldspan, and maybe be able to survive that way. But like just none of it worked out well. Like with the Phoenix of Ash trying to block, and then like the Frostbite your Phoenix, make a blocker, gain 4 life. Like if Jan's able to make it through that turn, conversation is completely different, but he's not. So the conversation is exactly where we're at, which is Matti Kuisma pumping the fist.